everyone, and welcome to day one of our annual Digital Marketing Week event. In honor of Einstein's birthday, all week long, we are honoring his unwavering curiosity, ingenuity, and passion. So welcome everyone as we kick off our 2022 Digital Marketing Week. Today, we have an exciting presentation on the future of paid media, which we will get started with shortly. I first wanted to introduce myself. My name is Sana Habib, and I am a Sales and Marketing Coordinator here at NetElixir, where we help e-commerce brands find and engage high-value customers and acquire game-changing insights. With over 17 years of experience and 12 years of international search marketing experience, we've been able to make a successful difference in over 500 e-commerce brands, as well as launch our very own proprietary customer intelligence platform, NetElixir Insights. NetElixir Insights targets and wins your high-value customers, those who are most loyal to your company and purchase large orders from you most frequently. To request a demo, please see the link in the chat. I wanted to remind you we have a live Q&A scheduled at the end of the session, so please feel free to submit your questions throughout today's presentation via the Q&A box or chat box located at the bottom of your screen. Friendly reminder to please take a minute and complete the short survey at the end of today's presentation, and of course, follow us on social media. Before I introduce our speakers today, I wanted to start off with a poll question. The question is, how confident are you in your ability to plan for the future of digital media? So we'll give you about 30 seconds to answer that. Great, so I see people are not so confident, but that's okay because we have a week long of insights, and by the end of it, I hope you will be very confident. I am now delighted to introduce our speakers for today. We have our very own Senior Digital Marketing Manager here at NetElixir, Rabeeha Khan. Joining Rabeeha, we have Billy McLellan. Billy is the Agency Development Manager and Customer Solutions at Google. So Rabeeha, I'll hand over the floor to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Rabeeha Khan. I'm a Senior Digital Marketing Manager at NetElixir, and I come with over 10 years of digital marketing experience in various industries. I'll take you through a high-level agenda. Today we're going to discuss the opportunities in the future of paid media, the challenges that come with those opportunities, how to future-proof your paid media campaigns, and then Google will be talking about their growth formula. So first of all, I want to jump right into the opportunity. The opportunity is explosive. As you'll see in the next slide, the e-commerce industry has been growing and continues to grow. Shopping habits that started early on in the pandemic are sticking around, and merchants are following consumer demand. Globally, the market is expected to reach over $5.5 trillion this year in 2022. And I think this is the first year that US e-commerce sales are also supposed to hit the $1 trillion mark. Along with that, I also want to mention social commerce, which it's on the next slide. Social commerce should not be considered in competition to e-commerce. It's an extension of it. It's another path that consumers are using to purchase directly within a social media platform. So currently includes Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, and it's expected to reach $45 billion globally this year. So the opportunity is clear and it's great for the industry. But with that growth, we can expect some challenges. So here's a high-level look at three main challenges we here at NetElixir see in the future of paid media. You can go to the next slide. Competition is rising, ad costs are rising, and privacy laws are changing how we conducted digital advertising in the past, specifically with third-party cookie deprecation. So now let's talk about each of these in a little bit more detail. According to a recent survey by Shopify, competition is the biggest obstacle to achieving growth in 2022. With very low barrier to entry, more and more businesses are going direct to consumer. I want to give you a tangible example of this, of the competition. This is, we were doing some research for a client a couple of weeks ago, and this is some research we pulled off of Amazon. in their particular vertical, in the past 2 years, 500 new brands have entered the market. So like spring 2020, there are about 220 brands in their niche market. And currently there are about 745 brands. So it's over 500 brands. It's completely like a crazy amount of brands that have entered the market, and just in a tiny vertical. So this is happening all over the market. And with that competition, ad costs inevitably rise, which is the second major challenge we identified. Over here, you'll see just 2021 year-over-year results in the different channels. And you can see some are increasing, all of them are increasing. Some are increasing tremendously, some are moderate, but everyone across the board, all the channels, the ad costs are rising. Businesses will have to spend more to maintain their share of voice and even more to gain market share. And lastly, one of the major challenges we here at NetElixir see is marketing effectively and measuring ROI accurately after the third-party cookie deprecation. Next slide, Heather, thank you. So I wanted to quickly go over why third parties are going away. They're going away because there's a rise in the demand for user choice and user privacy. So that part is not necessarily a bad thing. This change didn't just start happening. It started early in the 1990s when ad blocker came out. So, and now it's just in the past 4 or 5 years, it's just accelerated. That it accelerated first through Firefox and Safari killing off third-party cookies, and recently with iOS 14 blocking IDFA, which essentially blocks the ability for advertisers to track conversions and retarget across mobile devices. And then finally now Google has announced that Chrome will be killing off third-party cookies, which will functionally leave cookies useless. So we need to be prepared. So these were some of the challenges we see 2022 and beyond, but we here at NetElixir see these challenges as opportunities, and we say, bring it on. And now we'll talk about core areas businesses need to focus on to future-proof our campaigns. The first thing that's very important would be to focus on having a customer-centric omni-channel strategy. Omni-channel marketing is not an option anymore. It has become essential. It's important because it helps you meet your customer at every stage of their customer journey. It allows you to meet customers as they shift between channels and devices, including search, social, text, email, etc., with a seamless experience. I just want to make a point that to have this seamless experience, the creative we use serves as a glue. So wherever the customer meets your brand voice and tone is consistent. This really allows us to bring a human element to the whole experience and allows your audience to connect to the brand and build trust, which is going to be the future currency of e-commerce. So with our omni-channel strategy and advertising on multiple platforms to reach our customers, we also need to make sure that we're accurately measuring our marketing efforts. Next slide, please, Heather. Earlier, we talked about third-party cookies deprecating and the challenge that prevents in tracking performance. To solve that issue, first and foremost, we need to be collecting our own first-party data because that essentially gives brands real control. Third-party data is just a short-term solution in advertising, but to build a real connection with your customer and understand their journey, you need first-party data. This includes purchase history and website activity on your website, but also email engagement, customer feedback, surveys, amongst other things. To combat the third-party cookie deprecation issues, platforms have also come out with solutions to help us. Google has launched enhanced conversions. Enhanced conversions allow you to use your first-party data that you capture on your own website to be matched to campaign data, such as ads that were viewed on multiple devices. Billy will be talking more about enhanced conversions in more detail as Google's solution to third-party cookie deprecation. And we all know that Facebook ads took a massive hit due to iOS 14, and Facebook's solution to that, I think, Heather, can you skip to the next slide? That was enhanced conversions, and then the next one. Facebook's solution to that is the conversion API. This allows your website data, which is housed on your server, to go directly to Facebook Ads Manager, which is housed on Facebook server, and then you can see how Facebook users are interacting with your ads. Basically serves the same purpose as the pixel, but takes the browser dependency and the cookie out of the question. So we talked about having an omni-channel strategy and how measuring is getting complex, but with multiple channels and multiple touch points in the customer's journey, the number of signals to track and act on is also getting complex. And for that, we are going into the new future where we have to trust automation. We as an agency have seen artificial intelligence and automation evolve over the years. Being digital marketers, mostly from very technical background ourselves, initially we were quite skeptical to trust the automation. And Google as an agency partner has always worked with us as we took a middle route and took baby steps to test out automation. We have finally come to the point where we think if you don't adopt the automation, you'll get left behind. The algorithms are extremely powerful and they have proven themselves that they know best how to find our customers. So I want to talk about some initiatives in automation. Facebook has automatic bidding options where Facebook will work with this algorithm to find the lowest cost for the objective you're bidding on. You can maximize the number of results for your budget, or you can maximize your conversion value. So you set your goals, and then the Facebook will run the campaigns based on your objective. And Google is, of course, leaps and bounds ahead of the other platforms in machine learning and automation, and they have a brand new product, Performance Max. It's, I believe, the biggest launch Google has had in the past few years. It's essentially a goal-driven campaign where you set your business goals and the algorithm focuses on delivering on those goals above everything else. Now, let Billy describe this in more detail. So we talked about creating an omni-channel strategy, focusing on measuring omni-channel advertising efforts effectively, and also trusting automation to achieve our goals. Lastly, we want to make sure that we analyze the results and effectively drive insights from our data to understand our customer and drive profitable growth. There are various tools on the market that help you with this analysis. At NetElixir, we have a tool called NetElixir Insights that helps us do this, and actually helps us understand your high-value customers. Next slide, please, Heather. Who are your high-value customers? How does their shopping behavior differ from others? How often does a high-value customer visit your site before making a purchase? What are their various channel touch points? And when we see this data, we can see how to improve it and even allow us to shorten the cycle by, even shortening the cycle by 1 day can make a great impact in your revenue. So just as an example, you'll see here the data that we collect allows us to see like how long after their first visit do they purchase, how long between that visit and the second, or how many days between that. So you can like custom message, create custom messaging for your customer to shorten that time. And you can test see the data for different segments, like how are your high value customers behaving, how are your low value customers behaving, how are your mid value customers behaving. When we start analyzing the data, we will see the Pareto principle applied to your audience, and that a large portion of your revenue is coming from a small high value audience. So to maximize ROI, you need to allocate advertising dollars, not just blanket to everyone, but to the right customer and create custom messaging for them. The point is to look beyond that initial layer of data, dig deeper, and understand our customer better to improve both sales and the relationship. So that's something that NetElixir Insights helps us do. So to recap, we talked about the huge opportunity in e-commerce that comes with its expected set of challenges, which include mainly competition, ad costs, and third-party cookie deprecation. Then we talked about, next slide, Heather, about how we can future-proof our campaigns by focusing on a customer-centric omni-channel strategy, effectively measuring our campaigns in a cookieless world, trusting automation to achieve our goals, and using insights to understand our customers and drive profitable growth. So there was a lot to cover, and given the time constraints, I tried to touch on some of the main highlights. I talk a little fast, so I'll be happy to elaborate on anything in our Q&A portion. And now I'll hand it over to Billy, representing our partners at Google, and he'll be presenting Google's growth formula and how some of the things I talked about right now fit in.
Great. Thanks, Rabeeha. And just want to make sure everyone can hear me. Good. Great. So basically, I'm here today to build on a lot of what Rabeeha introduced earlier in the presentation. So much so, I know the topic of this week is just focusing on the future of digital media. And this is top of mind at Google as well. So Google actually commissioned a consulting firm to go out and look at the state of client agency relationships in relation to this specific topic to see what they're concerned about and how they're feeling. So let's go to the next slide and see what those findings were. So at a high level, there were kind of 5 things that popped. Within this survey, there were 5 growth opportunities that we'll touch a little bit more on throughout the presentation. But at a high level, we noticed that senior folks want to be focusing on business outcomes, right? So it's not just clicks for clicks' sake anymore. It's what are we driving from a business standpoint? Are we focused on conversion value, revenue, growing our business? That was an overarching theme that really popped. The second was automation. So I saw the poll earlier in the presentation where some people are nervous about the future of the industry, and you're not alone here. 86% of brands actually struggle with automation. So some of what we'll talk about throughout the rest of this presentation will help to make you feel more comfortable with that. The third piece, which Rabeeha hit on earlier in the presentation, was the end-to-end measurement. So almost 1 in 2 brands are saying that measuring ROI is a challenge. So we're going to talk about measurement at a high level as well. Within that, unlocking insights. So again, almost 1 in 2, 46% of brands are struggling with actually driving insights from customer data to address changing consumer behavior. And the last theme here is strong creative. So creative has always been important, but it's going to become increasingly important, and we'll talk about why in a little bit. So let's jump to the next slide. And we introduced the topics, and now we're actually going to take them on topic by topic and break them down. So on the next slide, we will start with end-to-end measurement. Remember, 46% of brands are saying that measuring ROI is a challenge. So let's unpack that on the next slide. Our answer to that at Google is going to be enhanced convergence. So Rabeeha talked about this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but the industry is changing a lot, right? So a lot of third party is going away due to the cookieless future, and Google's solution is introducing enhanced conversions, which is a unique way that we're able to kind of get ahead of the industry in terms of actually preparing for these challenges, but at the same time, helping you to better understand your own customer data. So let's go to the next slide. Here's how it would work, basically. It's a conversion tracking feature that's going to help you to measure your conversions more accurately through observable and modeled data. So here's why this is great. Most of the challenges and the privacy laws are actually coming along as it relates to specifically to third-party data, right? So us collecting data from the consumer. That will now be going away, and what we'll be relying on is first-party data, which means it will actually come from the business itself. Here's an example of how enhanced conversions might work. So say that someone is signed into Google and they view your ad. They then go to your website and they convert. What would happen then is the conversion tag would fire and it would let you know, hey, this person with this logged in Gmail address converted. What then would happen if you're using enhanced conversions is it would take that data and it would hash it. So it would hash all the PII, the personal data, so we would not see anything. But it would send back that first party data through Google, again, hashed, so everything stays kind of secret for a better term. And it would match on the back end that hash data with a logged in Gmail address. So through that, without any personal identity or personal data, we're able to determine who actually converted by using your own data. Now, for those who aren't logged in via Gmail, you'll see that this is going to help you with your observability. So what that means is Gmail is a large portion of the internet, but it's not everyone, right? So what we need to do to make up for the folks who aren't using Gmail, because we can't match that with hash data on our end, is we'll use conversion modeling, which is statistically significant based on what we're actually seeing from the first party logged in data. So this will help us to increase our conversion observability. And again, as I just mentioned, it's going to help us with our modeling that falls outside of logged in Gmail data. So holistically, we're going to have a really good understanding of who within your customer set is best driving your business. Within this, this enhanced conversion data is actually going to make us better when it comes to smart bidding. We hinted on automation, and we're going to get back into that, but it's going to make our Google proprietary smart bidding algorithms actually better at doing their job and better at finding new customers. And so at the end of the day, what that means is improved performance. So we're going to see higher conversion rates at a lower ROAS, thanks to this first party data that's going to be filtered in, and again, compliant with the new rules in the industry. Let's move on. So enhanced conversions. It's great to say, oh, this is a fantastic thing by Google, but I work for Google. How can I prove that, right? So alpha clients who are actually using this saw a 5% median increase in reported conversion rates. That's within search. Clients who are on YouTube actually saw up to 17% average increase in the reported conversion rate. So this isn't just adapting to fit the industry, it's adapting to also drive performance based on a better understanding of data. So this should be top of mind as you look to use Google and look to measure the effectiveness of your campaigns. Moving on to the next slide, let's jump into creative. So brands expect that creative strategy and content work with agencies will increase 20% over the next 2 years. That's huge. Let's unpack that. On the next slide, this really stands out to me. So I've been at Google for almost 3 years. I'm working as an agency development manager, but prior to Google, I actually spent time at a creative agency for 5 years. So I get to see the inner workings of how creative comes to life. And I really do believe that creative is the last unfair advantage in advertising. So if you think about it like a life example, right? You might have somebody who sets you up on a date with someone and says, hey, this person's great. You're going to get along wonderfully. You're going to be so compatible. But when you finally meet them, despite them maybe being the right person, sometimes that date doesn't go great. It's because you can't just find the right people nowadays. You need to be serving them the right message because of that increased competition that Rabeeha spoke to, but also the fact that everyone else is going to have access to similar audiences, right? What we need to do is use creative and the strength behind creative to set us apart. And we at Google have some options that can actually help you in certain instances if this is somewhere that you're struggling with. So next slide. Here are just some stats. I won't go through them all, but creative matters. So, without going into the specifics, we see that award-winning campaigns creatively also are multipliers for ROI. So the campaigns that are creatively awarded are often the ones that are driving the most impact when it comes to ROI and performance in the media. So remember, it's not just about finding those right people, it's pairing them with the right creative, serving them the right message that's going to resonate with them. As Rabeeha mentioned, the creative is the glue to your campaigns. So let's jump into automation because this is a big concern of the industry. I think it's probably why some of you at the beginning of the chat were a bit scared about the future. And again, you're not alone, like I mentioned. 86% of brands are struggling with automation. So we have a lot at Google that can help service you in terms of automation. We obviously believe in it. We have things like smart bidding, which are going to be hands down the best way to drive performance. I liken automation to trying to beat a Jeopardy expert. So I think there was that guy, Jeopardy James, who went on that run, the historic run at Jeopardy. And, he more often than not was beating other people. There were chances to beat him on a single question, but at scale, he was the most successful. That's how I like an automation, right? If you're trying to run campaigns yourself, you might be able to hit things once in a while, but at scale, it's going to be really hard to beat the machine based on its ability to drive signals. So specifically today, let's talk into the changing consumer behavior. We see that 70% of consumers are buying more online now than pre-COVID. And I'm sure this resonates with a lot of the folks on this call. We have all changed our buying habits, but we think this habit is here to stay because we've all had fairly good experiences for the most part. This stat really pops, and I think this is one that should really resonate with everyone. So some purchases, right, within some paths to purchase, buyers are seeing over 500 digital touch points before a purchase. Think about the overload of information as people go through their purchase path to purchase and carry out their own purchase behavior. It is overwhelming due to competition, mixed messaging, different platforms, etc. So there's a lot going on here. It's not just an increase in purchases, it's what's happening before they're made. So in this new digital economy, we want to use automation to make sure we're showing up in the right place at the right time at scale, driving optimal performance towards our business goals. And that leads us to introducing our new campaign type, which Rabeeha hinted at the beginning of the conversation. But next slide, we're going to talk about Performance Max. So on the next slide, we'll get into the specifics. This is a new campaign type, right? It's going to maximize your performance across all of Google Ads inventory using automation. So what this is going to do is save you time rather than setting up several different campaigns. It's one that serves across all those channels. It's going to be time efficient, but it's also going to drive towards a common goal and use those channels collectively to feed those goals. So on the next slide, here are the benefits of Performance Max. One, you're going to find more converting customers for your goal, right? Rather than running singular campaigns in one specific channel, Google's algorithms and the machine learning are going to be able to use data in real time to understand where these consumers are and serve them the right message, the right piece of creative on the right platform, whether it be YouTube, discovery, display, etc., and make sure that we're getting them at the right time. When are they most likely to convert? So the second piece is we want to drive more value for your budget. So rather than having specific budgets allocated to specific channels, this is going to use a shared budget and say, hey, I'm going to do the best I can with this pot of money and this pot of investment to drive growth for your business across all channels. So it's going to take that money and stretch it to the best of our ability. The third piece is getting rich and transparent insights. So I think we talked about the fact that people struggle to be able to measure their campaign success. Performance Max is a new and improved way to measure. So as you log into your campaigns, there will be a front view of how everything's doing, and it will pull out audience information, creative information, and other drivers in real time for you to evaluate on the go. And again, the overarching theme here is using the best of Google's automation. So using smart bidding, audience signals, etc., it's going to serve that right message at the right time across multiple platforms. And again, this isn't just a hot, shiny new product. This is something that is working for customers. So advertisers using Performance Max are seeing an average increase of 13% total incremental conversions at a similar CPA. So remember, we talk about cost efficiency here. That same investment, we are seeing go a lot further with incremental conversions because of the machine learning and the machine's ability to find the user at the right place at the right time. So that was Performance Max. Within that, let's jump into measurement because 46% of brands are struggling to effectively drive insights from consumer data. So we hint on Performance Max. I wanted to start with this slide just to give you a high-level overview. We talked about Performance Max increased ability to measure. This is just a breakdown of that. So it's not only going to help you to proactively resolve performance issues and to identify drivers of your campaigns week on week and month on month performance, but it's actually going to share marketing intelligence from the background at Google to feed your campaigns and make them better. It will also give you recommendations in real time to continually drive better results within these campaigns. But moving on, when we talk about actually understanding consumer insights and data, we want to make sure that we're understanding the full path to purchase. So I think one of the things that happens in the industry is people view singular channels as an or, right? Do I do search or YouTube? Do I do search or display? They're actually an and. And the reason why is 80% of people are typically switching between search and video when researching products to buy. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see it's not just search and video, it's across all Google-owned properties. So almost 60% of consumers are finding their favorite brands doing things like watching videos on mobile when they're on YouTube, catching up on interests by searching and using the search discover feed on Google Mobile, or reading through their emails, right? So there's a lot of discovery happening across various channels. It's not just one channel driving interest. In fact, over 90% of people are actually saying they discover new brands or products on YouTube specifically. So again, ton of information given to these potential consumers on their way to purchasing, and a lot of it is happening within Google-owned channels. So, and once they've discovered them, consumers tend to act pretty quickly. So 85% of people are taking a product-related action within 24 hours of discovering a new product. What does that tell us? It is important to have a presence throughout all these channels because we know once they're exposed, they're probably going to start to purchase pretty quickly. So again, it's understanding the path to purchase. When you talk about driving consumer insights out of your data, it's understanding that consumers are not just in one place anymore. There are multiple touch points that influence their decisions. And so We do want to talk about Google's power to tailor solutions to take all these signals into consideration to guide customers towards discovering your brand and acting on their interest. So using video action campaigns, which is a video campaign on Google with the ability to drive purchases, signups, or just simply to learn more, and discovery, so a hybrid format that shows up across the YouTube home feed, the Discover feed, and Gmail together will collectively enable reach up to 3 billion people. So it's not just driving scale. Remember, it's driving path to purchase and consideration throughout all these channels, because we know once they're exposed, these consumers will move quickly. We've talked about the fact these channels are an and, not an or, right? How can we use video action and discovery to feed search rather than using one of these in a silo and hoping that we hit? We want to have a presence throughout the full funnel of marketing here. And it's not just to say it's an and, not an or, it's not a sales thing, it is the truth. Advertisers running on discovery ads, in addition to search, see 12% more conversions. Within that, advertisers using YouTube ads, in addition to search, see an 8% higher search conversion volume at a 4% lower search CPA. So you're making money and saving money here by using channels together. So to recap, we went through that pretty quickly, but the Google Ads growth formula is a great tool. This is something that is external and you can find on Google. You can type it into Google, you find it right away. Basically, this will allow you to use your goals for your business to formulate a plan. So definitely go on Google, check out the growth formula, and you'll see that it starts with setting an objective, getting yourself ready, and then being able to take action towards evaluating performance and potentially expanding your campaign from there on out. So here's a high-level summary. I know that was a lot to go through quickly, but I hope this was helpful today. With that, I'll kick it back over to the NetElixir team.
Thank you, Billy and Rabeeha. I hope you all enjoyed this amazing presentation as much as I did. I wanted to remind the audience that we will be sharing the presentation on Friday once our webinar series concludes. Next, we're going to kick off the live Q&A session, so please feel free to continue submitting any questions you have via the chat box or the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen. If we don't have time to get to yours, we'll be sure to have someone reach out to you. And it looks like we have a few questions to start. So, Billy and Rabeeha, what is a good first step small businesses can take to create an omnichannel strategy?
You want me to go?
Go ahead, Rabeeha. Yeah, I'll build to whatever you say. You go.
Like the first step would be to understand first what channels your customers are already on, and make it a customer centric strategy. So rather than what we think, understand what the existing customers are actually doing. Billy, you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. So I think when you evaluate this, it's starting with that goal, right? As a small business, you want to figure out, what am I trying to achieve? What am I trying to drive? And where can I potentially reach these consumers? I do think if you're a small business evaluating a place to get started, something like a Performance Max campaign is a fantastic opportunity. The reason why I say that is, one, it's going to allow you to feed a specific goal, which is great. But two, it's going to take a shared budget and it's going to allow you to show up in multiple places and multiple channels. Three, within that, it's not just showing up in these channels, it's giving you the ability to use Google machine learning to find the right customers, right? So it's not just actually trying to get on these channels just for channel's sake. It's actually using machine learning to find customers in a very competitive market. So I think a hybrid campaign format like that for small businesses is a really effective place to start, because it just gives you more of a presence with some added benefits within machine learning.
Great, thank you. Second question is actually for Billy. How does Google recommend adjusting other ad types when testing Performance Max?
Sure. Another great question. So obviously there's some changes in the industry, and if someone's running on Google, they might not want to move everything over to Performance Max just yet. What we recommend doing is keeping your other campaigns live while testing smaller segments on Performance Max to get an understanding of that, right? So maybe you have larger campaigns that are feeding several goals throughout search, display, etc. Go over to Performance Max, set it up as a new campaign, but test a smaller segment of something that might have been running within your larger Google sphere. This will allow you to generate some learnings, both professionally as you learn to operate it, learn to read the data, and actually how to drive performance, while also not taking all of your campaigns and moving them over just yet, because that can be a challenge, particularly for smaller businesses to start with. So we'd say test them both at first and then slowly move it over as you start to get more confident.
Awesome, thank you. Question for either of you. What do you think is the most exciting new innovation you're seeing in the paid media landscape?
Things like Performance Max and all these automated solutions where you can actually then focus on strategy and let the algorithm run. That seems like, to me, the most exciting one, some of the most exciting things happening. Billy?
Yeah, I would add to that the advances in measurement, I think, are really exciting. Right? I think when you first think about start to think about the beginning of digital marketing, particularly in search, you're just trying to drive as many clicks as possible and then hoping they turned into customers. Nowadays, we're able to use first-party data to not just see who went to your website, but who bought something, what they bought, and how can we find more customers like them. So I just think measurement has come so far, and it's actually become easier to use. I think some of the measurement tools that were introduced a few years ago were great, but they might have been complex. I think the new measurement tools, particularly the ones that use first-party data, are going to be really great for the future of the industry.
Thank you guys for sharing. Question number 4. Does creative still hold as much relevancy in a B2B space as opposed to B2C?
I'll answer that first, and then Billy, if you want to add anything. I think so, because it's still human to human. So the people who are seeing the ads so I think that's why it's still important. And of course, the tone and the voice is important too, and that all comes from the creative. Billy?
Yeah, for sure. To add to that, I actually think you can argue it's almost more important, right? So if you're doing something like CPG, or you're selling a consumer-focused tool, it's easy to just take a picture. It looks great, and you could put that static ad up there, right? When we think about the intricacies of the B2B space, a lot of them have to be explained a bit more than just showing what that product looks like. It's almost like a demo, right? So when you think about the power of something like video, when it comes to creative, video can explain a B2B offering, particularly a service or something that's a little more in depth, better than a image and text often can, because you have the added ability to go a little bit longer, go a little bit deeper. So I actually think in some instances, it's equally, if not slightly more important as it relates to B2B, because it can be a bit more complex industry and offering.
Great, thank you. And one more question for you guys. From a cross-channel retargeting perspective, how will enhanced conversions affect our ability to retarget past purchasers, as we will no longer be able to leverage email IDs to build customer lists?
Great. So the short answer is you'll still be able to retarget, right? Despite the data being hashed, we'll be able to use similar audiences to those converting using machine learning and trying to determine who's doing what and what's out there. So there still will be some retargeting and remarketing options. That is certainly not going away. There just will be certain intricacies to that, which I think will be introduced further down the road, but you'll start to get more comfortable with as you start to roll out enhanced conversions within your own campaign. So in short, you'll still be able to remarket to those potential customers who are very similar to those converting. It will just be with a slightly different nuance to it.
Great, thank you both. That concludes our live Q&A, and it looks like we're getting close to the end of the webinar. But before you go, I want to share some special offers with you. NetElixir wants to introduce you to your high-value customers by downloading our latest Consumer Insights report, where we break down the search, shop, buy behavior for high-value customers across 9 retail categories. Visit netelixir.com/faces to download or press the link in the chat. For the next offer, we want to know if you're ready for the future of marketing. We are offering a checklist to future-proof your business, which you can download at netelixir.com/events/DMW, the same link you used to register for today's webinar. So this concludes the webinar. Thank you again, Billy and Rabeeha, for the amazing presentation, and all of you for attending. We hope to see you back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. for our Future of GA4 Analytics presentation by our NetElixir CEO, Udain Bose. Thank you again and have a great day.